U.S. market isn't looking so good. Another bank that may be failing. We have more Credit Suisse fears this morning. In fact, it's looking really, really bleak for them. Why? Because, well, their biggest backer, which is the Saudi National Bank, they came out and said, no, we're not going to give them any more money. Basically, they're really in trouble. They need a lot of money. Due to bad investments, they have really screwed up their balance sheet. And recently, there's been other things that people have found in their financial report that are troubling. So they went out and reached out to their biggest bank, their biggest helper, so to speak, and they said, no, we're not giving you any more money. So that is why their stock is crashing. This is a representation of how their stock has looked going all the way back to 90s, peaked out a couple times, right? And since then, it's down, and now it's about 97% down from its peak, right? So Credit Suisse is not looking good. It's upsetting the European market, which has crashed, and all the banking stocks, again, have turned weak. Yesterday, we had a really good rally day for banks. Today, it's looking like banks are going to get crushed once again, which is why the U.S. market is not looking so good. You know what? What did I say? Just yesterday, I said, I anticipate there will be more banking weakness, right? Even though the Fed and what the Fed has been doing with the rate hikes affects American banks, but there's repercussions worldwide, right? All the banks are connected to each other, and economies are connected to each other. All the other central banks are copying each other, right? So we know that everyone overprinted, and now everyone is forced in a situation to raise rates really quickly, right? But when one bank gets weak, another bank gets weak, another bank gets weak. They're all connected. So the banking stocks are taking a beating this morning. So that's what's happening. That's what's happening, in case you're wondering why everything is looking red once again, because banks are looking weak once again. Well, that's good for Bitcoin, right? Because that's why Bitcoin is up 50% this year, beating stocks, gold, and banks. Who are you going to turn to? When you take your money out of the bank, who are you going to turn to, right? Like, where else are you going to park your money? Bitcoin. That's where. All right. So with all that said, what about Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin right now is proving that it is decoupling. I mean, the U.S. market is horrible, but this is looking at a European market. It's a little bit hard to read, but this is comparing to the German market, the UK market, and I forgot what the other one is. Just the overall European market. And you can see on the right side, again, I'm sorry for it's hard to read, but all the markets have been falling, but the one that hasn't fallen is Bitcoin. In fact, it's going in reverse right now, right? So Bitcoin, I know it's early, but it's starting to decouple in a good way, right? Mostly because there's a lot of banking fears right now. There's a lot of banking fears that more bank runs will happen, more collapses, and people are turning to Bitcoin. That is fantastic, right? But what about this? I put this on a thumbnail. What is this? Well, this is according to Wyckoff pattern. And a lot of people have started paying attention to Wyckoff pattern because it's a pattern that Wall Street whales, or just whales in general, uses to manipulate the people, manipulate retail investors. It's a pattern specifically designed to fear people out of something. It's been applied to stocks for 100 a year. I don't know about hundreds of years, but at least 100 years. It's a very old pattern. But right now, if you apply it to Bitcoin, it's following it to a dot almost, right? You can see the accumulation stage coming off from bottom, right? You got a breakout. You have a throwback, which means you retouch that breakout point, right? And then what happens afterwards? Well, then you start profiting. That's when things are or things get wild. Let's just put it that way, right? And that's leading up to the next halving event and beyond, right? So if I was going to put like a halving event in here, it'll probably be like somewhere in between the 2 points, the 2 peaks, right? That would probably be a halving event. We have a really good shot of having a really good upswing or peaking out this year, and then we'll probably retrace a little bit. We have seen that with previous cycles. I've shown you guys. I'll show you again, right? And then afterwards, you break out and you continue upwards, right? I don't know if we're going to hit 1 million this next cycle. Unlikely, but eventually we will. We will. But so many people have noticed that Bitcoin, because it's still relatively small, the market cap is still relatively small, right? And those Wall Street guys, those whales got billions and trillions under their, at their disposal. They tend to try to manipulate. But as Bitcoin gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it just becomes harder and harder to do. And Bitcoin is not a U.S. thing. It's a worldwide thing, right? But if this holds true, get ready, because there's many things that point to us having a really good run by mid-year. And especially if more banks fail and the Fed pauses its rate hike, I mean, it's a perfect storm. It's a perfect storm to skyrocket, basically. That's the best way to look at it. Here's another one. A pi cycle indicator is about to cross. The last 2 times, it only happened twice in Bitcoin's history. The last 2 times this happened, very good things happened. In 2015, 2018, after it crossed, Bitcoin went on an 8,000% run. In 2019 to 2022, it went on a 1,400% run. Okay, so even if we get something lower, even if we get 1,000% run, or even let's just say more conservative, 500% run, it's still gonna be a pretty good run. It's one of those long-term indicators that doesn't happen very often, or long-term signal, I should say, that doesn't happen very often, but these are type of signals you don't want to ignore, because if you do, you'll lose out on 8,000% gain or 1,400% gain. And this is just for Bitcoin. I can't even imagine some of the altcoins, they have gone up like 1,000,000%, or 10,000% or 30,000%, right? Some of the altcoins have exploded during these periods. So exciting time indeed. And you know what? There's a lot of talk about Bitcoin and its energy usage. Now it's proven that Bitcoin is, at least 50% of Bitcoin's usage is using green energy, clean energy, right? Does that mean maybe we'll get an Elon effect? Maybe Elon will open up Bitcoin payments once again for Tesla. And maybe he could start accumulating some Bitcoin on the balance sheet again for Tesla, because he has sold off much in 2022. We'll see. But this green energy debacle or debate continues on, because we still have a lot of states and countries that only think that Bitcoin or thinks Bitcoin is only using dirty energy. But that's not true. Over 52% is clean energy, and that is fantastic. Fantastic.